Hi, my name is Shaun, and welcome to Little Big Shifts.
My name is Tovi, and I'm excited to introduce our guest that we'll be speaking to today. Her name is Tiffany. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
Good
Nice
to meet you.
I'm really excited about our conversation because you wanted to talk about ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD back in elementary school, and back then my mom was against the medication. So I was just kind of like, I just never thought anything of it, and hyperactive and all the scrambled stuff that comes with it. But lately, in the last like 3-4 weeks, I've been like really thinking about it. I'm 43 now. I've never been medicated, and I find myself struggling often when I'm just like I'm spinning too much. Like even today was one of those days where I'm just like living in the clouds, really floaty and airy and like all over the place. I'm like, man, I really got to go talk to a doctor and get on some medication because it's challenging to live with.
And the topic that you are going to be speaking to us today is ADHD and autism. So it just is perfect timing.
And I'm so excited to be here to talk about both subjects because they're really near and dear to my heart. Having kind of gone through my own shift. So, yeah, just very excited to talk about this today.
So with that, for an example, what would your life have been like about 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I was just starting to become aware that I was mentally struggling with my mental bandwidth to do my job as I needed to do. And I was starting to try to figure out what was going on. I was working at a medical clinic in the IT department. I was a software trainer for Epic. Epic software that most clinics use, or at least it's the number one EHR or electronic health record software used by hospitals. So a really common one, but I was certified in a few of the programs there. And I was a trainer at this clinic. And actually that was before COVID happened. I was having problems making eye contact with my coworkers. And that was kind of one of my first tells that I was a little bit having trouble with work. And kind of like I would go home and just feel very tired and depleted and very drained. And I didn't know why. And then after COVID happened, I was laid off and I started to work from home. And that immediately flipped.
So you were aware you weren't really making eye contact, feeling so tired at the end of the day, but you weren't fully aware that you had ADHD at the time.
Or autism. Yeah, I had seen doctors for other mental health things at times because I'm a sensitive person. I always knew I was a very sensitive person, but I thought that was just kind of part of how I was naturally, which I guess it is. Part of how I am
more
naturally.
Of a personality trait than a condition or whatever.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I was just kind of starting to wonder about myself a little bit deeper at that point, and trying to figure out what was going on.
How did you discover this for yourself?
Looking back, I was heading an autistic burnout from being around people, and it draining me and me not understanding why. So then when I was laid off, I got a job about 2 months later working from home, and I was so successful. Like mentally, I could just process and do my job, and I was rocking it out, and it was wonderful feeling just to finally like be able to, I guess all the pieces kind of were coming together for me mentally, and it was easy, and I loved it, and I was like very compassionate about my job and thriving. And I actually didn't realize there was a problem until we had to go back to work in the office for a few days a week. Drained me so bad with my travel and presenting that I set a doctor's appointment, but I couldn't get in for 8 months. So then after an 8-month wait, I was so burned out that I had gotten physically ill. My mental health was horrible. And I actually was laid off because I was in such a burnout that I couldn't perform. And then 2 weeks later, the beginning of my testing happened. And I went through a month of testing, and they diagnosed me with autism, high functioning, and ADHD combined. And it shocked me. I figured that the ADHD was going to be a thing, but the autism really threw me through a loop. But in general, hearing both of those things and, having walked on the neurotypical side of life, so I thought, it was really just kind of took the ground out from under my feet, I would say, for a little bit.
Did you feel like it was kind of like an identity thing?
Totally. I feel like I got to know my identity almost, like, because I started like uncovering the parts of myself that almost like were me living up to the standard that I thought I needed to live up to. Because I guess, and I've learned since, that when you're autistic, I mean, you don't necessarily, I don't know, I didn't know how to fit in. I just didn't know how to naturally fit in. So I would study people and observe and learn how to fit in based on what I saw around me. And that was just to fit in. And it was kind of a subconscious process. I'm sure like way back when I was young, it wasn't, but it became a subconscious process to blend in, to survive, and to thrive, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense from my perspective too, because it's like I said, I was diagnosed with the ADHD when I was in elementary school, and so I lived my whole life like hyperactive, unfocused. At times, it's not like you're always unfocused, but I always just knew I have ADHD. It's fine. It's a part of who I am. Like it's like that label that is on you. But getting diagnosed at a later stage in life, like, well, how was that for looking back at your like early adulthood and teenage years?
It was a full on process. Because I reflected on my whole life, and I saw how parts of my neurodivergence drastically changed the trajectory of how I made different decisions and things like that, and just kind of like grew to love myself in a different because I don't think I really loved myself or even deeply knew myself. I mean, I've always been kind of like a deep thinker. I like to think about things and solve puzzles, but I didn't. I mean, I know myself so much better after going through all of those changes. So yeah, it's just been quite a process.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're never really quite trusting yourself because your energy is over here and it's not fitting in with what everyone else is doing or saying, and you're like, you want those connections, you want to be a part of it, but you're kind of like have that lack of faith because you don't have the like that support of like, why do I get so tired, why do I not focus, or whatever. Like you said, once you were able to work in your own home, in your own environment, you're like, wait, I can do all of this and like really good.
It's almost like validating your identity.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was such a I mean, it was such a beautiful experience. Just, I guess, realizing that I'm okay as I am, just like accepting Tiffany as Tiffany is for the first time, because I would be hard on myself for not being able to do things like other people could as easily. Like some things would come easier to me at times, it seemed, but other things were definitely markedly harder. And yeah, not knowing why, I just kind of thought that was just part of me, and I was just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then with the ADHD and the autism, and I know you are quite spiritual as well. Did you know you were spiritual before your diagnosis, like before COVID, or did you awaken to this kind of at the same time, or did that come after? Like, where does this lay in with you? Because that's a lot of moving parts combining all of these aspects together.
Yeah, yeah. And that was another piece of the puzzle, so to speak. So when I started to get when I made the appointment to get looked at, because I was feeling when I'd returned to the office and I was feeling so burned out. Oh gosh, I just forgot what your question was. See, this is
Just
an
about
example.
this, yeah, no, the like, how did the spirituality, because even I'm asking specifically too, because I didn't awake to my spirituality until the last recent years, and that alone was just like rocked my whole foundation in a beautiful way. Same thing, but very ungrounding, very grounding at the same time. Like it's just a whole other thing. So in aspect to the ADHD, where did that start to weave into your life too?
Yes, okay. Thank you. Sorry. So it was okay. So this is quite a thing. So it was July of 2022 when I was laid off, and then I was 8 months unemployed. And then I started to spiritually awaken, actually, and I started seeing repeating numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started just being fascinated by different things I wasn't before, and my intuition picked up, and I started taking Adderall to treat my ADHD. So I've wondered if that kind of helped me connect and such spiritually, or if that just would have happened at the same time it happened anyways. I just think about all these things as I reflect on this whole process. But yeah, so I started spiritually awakening in October of 2022, and it kept going, and I was still unemployed until March of 2023. And by then, my spiritual awakening was so much so that I was having like visions and things that I didn't understand. And I was tapping into what I now know as Christ consciousness and the Merkaba. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I'm just now learning about these things. And I questioned for a while whether I was losing my mind. I really did. I was sure possibly
It could
I
definitely
was.
feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and then in March of 2023, I started working again. Finally, I was like, yes, I got this. And then I burned out 3 months later, and I burned out even harder. And yeah, so then I've been in that burnout state for a year and a half. Yeah, but I'm starting to feel better now with this pill. And I'm it's okay. Like, I think it all happened so that I could get in touch with myself and get to know myself. But
Mm-hmm.
it was all layered at the same time. And then after I lost my second job, the one that I only worked at for 3 months before I got too burned out, I really got in touch with my autism because I wasn't connecting as much with spirit or source. And like, everything got really kind of dark and shut down for me. And then I really dug into neurodiversity, I guess. So yeah, sorry for the ramble, but it was quite a
I
process.
didn't feel like ramble at all.
No, it's not. No,
Okay.
it's beautiful. That is such a I think it feels like we can ramble sometimes because when you're going through anything that's like that higher energy, Christ consciousness, extra energy, it's all we can do to really harness it in and stay grounded and make the most sense of it. And it's like spirit gives you these little clues, right? And then you're like, oh, I know this feels different. I know this feels different. Like you're repeating numbers or realizing maybe you had symbols or shapes. You mentioned the Merkaba and the Christ consciousness. And even I know with Christ consciousness comes along like, oh, who's Jesus? Who's Mary? Like all of these deities and gods. And it takes a lot to figure out. So in even explaining it, it feels like rambling, but it's so not. It's a beautiful story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It feels good to share that because it's yeah, it happened. It was crazy, and yeah, it's validating to share.
Yeah, and even explaining like how that can disrupt your life so much, like you said, trying to figure out getting a job and then, oh, I'm burning out or it's not quite resonating with you for whatever reason. When you're going through that spiritual shift or identity shift of figuring out who you actually are, you leave things that don't resonate with you anymore too. And it's just not an option to stick with things that aren't in the right frequency.
Yes.
Something that I've been learning about lately, this is exactly on what both of you guys are talking about, is the vibration of authenticity is actually one of the highest forms of consciousness, it's higher than love. And I think that's such a hard thing for us to actually do. Sometimes you think you know who you are, you're on the right path, and then things just fall apart. Like you said, you finally got this job, and 3 months later, like that burnout, right? It's just like, as people in this culture, is like we spend so much time trying to be what we're supposed to be, and it's eliminating who we actually are. And like that's why I like the spiritual awakening and being spiritual, that forces you to like connect with these Christ consciousness, get into this higher level of vibration and existing and finding your true self. Because then when you can be your true self, you attract more people to you that are more aligned with you, right? We end up doing random podcasts with people who live in a different country because cool things like that happen, and I love it.
Right. That's so true. That's so true. And like that's what I've really awakened to. And also, I don't know, do you ever feel like you see neurodiversity in like a lot of people? I'm not trying to say that to say like everybody's in the autism club or the ADHD club, because I'm not trying to say that. But I do think that if we reflect and think about it, we can all relate to how it feels to be burned out, tired,
Mhm.
whether we relate with having autism or ADHD symptoms or not. So I don't know. I really hope that like as more people are diagnosed, because I just researched 1 in 36 children nowadays are diagnosed with autism. It gets crazy. And yeah, I just think as more and more people are diagnosed, the world is just going to naturally become a more compassionate and authentic place. Back to that word again, because almost autism leaves you with like no choice after a while. At least it didn't for me. I don't know. Like, and I'm sorry. I'm speaking. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, because I've learned recently that autism is such a singular thing too. Like my son is, we're just now getting OT services for him. He's 6. And I just spoke with the provider about it, and he said, you've met one autistic child, and just, I don't know.
Do you mind me asking what's OT services, so our listeners might be interested and think this could be my son or daughter as well, or husband or wife? And what is an OT service?
Absolutely. Occupational therapy, or physical therapy. And I, in fact, inquired about this for myself too, just a few days ago before I started taking a new medication, because I was kind of tired of not being able to mentally do what I felt like I should be doing, like helping my husband with supper and, just things that are too draining after a day. So after a full day of work. So
That is a lot. And like, not to say less about the autism or ADHD, but honestly, with the spiritual awakening and being so connected again, it's almost like they're going hand in hand for me, like really, really, truly. Because with certain energies that will come through, like people follow these Schumann resonances and stuff like this, and the earth and all these light codes coming down, it will zap you if you're sensitive.
oh, I'm so happy you brought this up, because I've thought about this so many times. And it's interesting, like, that's why I was like, I don't know, like having both go on at the same time and then being so similar, like
A lot. Yeah.
it is like so similar that it makes me wonder, like, are we just all kind of evolving?
Right.
I don't know, like, and we're changing as
I
a people.
I believe we're changing I think as a human species.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think our consciousness is elevating. We're on like an upswing of this energy. Our awareness of spirit and like spiritual things, and our consciousness has raised more in the last year than it has in the last 15 years. I think we're accelerating. And I'm just regurgitating information that I've heard from, smarter people than me in terms of the spiritual world. But I believe
Right.
that for sure. And like
Oh,
the
yeah.
more
I
people,
believe that the more people you meet and talk to, and like everyone is awakening to this, and specifically the last like 3 years,
and I think
and like
it's
quick.
and I think with autism and ADHD, it's like there's more people being diagnosed with that now than there was 50 years ago. And I think that's it's not because we have more chemicals in our food system or anything like that. I believe it's because our consciousness is raising, and because of our societies being like just kind of naturally disconnected from nature, where like we got to spend more time in nature. I think it's gonna, for myself, like I get really hyperactive and really like antsy, and I have to go and like literally do some physical grounding, stand on the ground, let the rain hit me, just be out there and breathe, and I'm a million times better after that. And there's something to do with our consciousness raising and our connection with nature that balances out. And I believe that's what's coming. That's kind of what's happening with this more higher level of diagnosing of autism and ADHD. Is it's becoming more obvious because of our consciousness raising and our disconnection of nature. That's just my own personal theory, anyways.
And it's almost like it's like flaring up if you aren't in your own rhythm, right? So that's almost using your own sovereignty more and being more self-aware, because if you're being put into somebody else's schedule or box, or you're uncomfortable, it flares up, and that's where you get the burnout or too distracted, those kinds of things. So it's empowering. You need to be responsible for your schedule and mindful and protect yourself more. Otherwise, you're going to hit that crash, right?
You both have brought up so many points that I've thought about and just chewed on, and wish that like people could better understand or understand. I don't like the word understand, because I really don't. And I've also forgot what you were both saying, because I'm kind of floating on the high of what you shared and just feeling like, oh, I remember now. You were talking about nature, Shaun.
Yeah.
When I first started to awake, oh my gosh, like I bought all these books about herbalism. I was growing lavender. I wanted to get really in touch with the earth, with natural healing. I sometimes did not crave meat or certain foods. Sometimes I'd have a coffee aversion. Just like sometimes I wouldn't be hungry for a couple days, and I just kind of flowed with it and didn't get in the way with it. And it kind of led me to where I needed to go. Tovi, about you brought up our consciousness raising, right? I so feel that. I so feel that, and I've had conversations with other people that feel the same way. That just like the vibrations and such raising, it's just like, yeah, we're changing. I just feel like we are changing, and and the more that we change, I think the more that, I mean, there's going to be a process, but the more understanding and the more understanding, or the more the more that we're going to tap into like our authentic self, because almost maybe we won't have a choice after a time, I don't know, which is good. I think we shouldn't, I mean, we should just be able to be ourselves, right?
That's
Because we all are each other as well.
Right.
It's kind of like that real unity thing is becoming not just a good idea to be compassionate and kind and loving towards each other. It's like you'll have the same thoughts. You'll have those synchronicities that will actually happen to two people on totally different sides of the world. And it's like, yeah, me too. Well, why is that? Because we're all coming from one source. Like all of our light within us that animates us and lights us up and keeps us alive, it's not coming from different things. It's all from one thing, and we're all actually, I think, beginning to understand that.
And okay, I want to, before I forget, balance. So balance is a big subject with spirituality. It's been a big subject with me and balancing neurodiversity with real life, with like fun, just being in society and managing. Because when I first started to awaken, I couldn't go to the grocery store. And I actually, until just a few days ago, I couldn't go to the grocery store with a list of 3 things and remember, and then also focus on where to find them. And then all the people around and all the sounds and the smells, like all these things are so amplified. And that also happens when you spiritually awaken. So, the crossover there just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, the
It really
sensitivity
does.
raises.
Truly.
Yeah, I was talking to my son. He's 13. He's got ADHD as well. I was talking to him the other day, and we were talking about like sensitivity being a gift rather than like as men. The idea of being
Yes.
sensitive. It's like culturally, it's like, oh, you're not a man if you're sensitive. And I was explaining. I was just learning this, and this goes into your grocery store kind of analogy that you made. Like being sensitive, it's like, think about like a thermostat. Like if I have a thermostat that can have the ability to gauge temperature in increments of 10 degrees at a time, it's not that very good of a thermostat. But if I have one that can do 5 degrees at a time, or 1 degree increments, or 0.01, the more sensitive that thermostat is, the more valuable it is. And so it depends on what you're using that thermostat for. If I'm using that thermostat to gauge temperature, it's a really good tool for how sensitive it is. What are you using this tool for? And what is this sensitivity that you have? Where is it really valuable, and where is it struggle? And being aware of that is really important, so that like, hey, I'm going into this environment, I'm going to have a difficult time. Or hey, I'm going to this environment, I got this, don't worry, I'm going to excel. Right? So being aware of that, and that authenticity of having that confidence when that when your sensitivity is being used for its purpose, and then also when it's going to have a hindrance. Being aware of that, I think, is really, really important.
Yes.
Acknowledging it, the first step.
If they taught in school how to become more self-aware, no matter who you are, you would benefit. And, you could really start, and not that these things should only be taught in school. I think as we grow, I don't know. Let me backtrack. So I feel like if school maybe taught more, if we are going to go to school, like, and have our kids go to this school for 7-8 hours a day, why don't we teach things about how to like best function in society when things get hard, or just learn more about your just being self-aware, being more compassionate with others, just things like that. And I feel like if that started with kids younger and younger, right, like we'll really start to see change throughout generations, I guess,
Yeah. And,
really real change, right? Like,
and I think like identifying your ADHD,
yeah,
diagnosed, like when you discover that late in life, right? Like how old were you when you discovered that?
37 years old.
Yeah, like imagine
After
how much
dropping out of
different.
college 4 times and all these other things.
Right. Imagine how different it was if that was part of the educational system. Neurodivergence that are like, again, that those tools are good in these environments and bad in these environments. So put these children in environments that they're good at, and let's try to build that confidence. Like, I think that should be a part of education. Like labeling, it's almost like labeling people, which is like we're told not to right now.
Yeah, but then also I feel like you almost have to label to like understand that like you maybe don't understand, if that
Right.
makes sense. You know, like the label thing is difficult because I was once not labeled, now I label myself, but I am still Tiffany at the end of the day. And
But
you know,
you're identifying yourself with higher levels of accuracy, so you're able to
right.
be more Tiffany than you've ever been because now you have an identification that makes sense to you that you can now accept and you can go live life with.
Yeah, yeah, like and it's amazing to like I didn't really accept myself as I maybe thought I did, you know, at times, but I didn't. I didn't know what that meant fully until I awoke, I guess, and kind of learned about neurodiversity.
And all
After
that
my
happened.
life got shook up upside down. And
Yeah.
that Will Smith song came to mind, and I wanted to share with you. This is a story all about how my life got
Turned
flipped upside down.
Which is hilarious. I love that. Yeah, and that song is a great example of what a spiritual awakening is like.
Literally, yeah.
And you
And
went
I
through a
feel like
spiritual awakening and a diagnosis all at the same time.
that song popping in my head to bring up during this podcast as an example of spirituality too. I feel like, you know, I don't know, like,
Definitely.
you know, that was meant to be said right there for whatever
Yep.
reason. That's how it feels though. That's how it did feel. And but I'm so happy that my life got flipped, turned upside down because now I know myself, and I maybe wouldn't have if it didn't. Like, not, I definitely wouldn't have known myself like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, even with you saying that, like, let's think about Fresh Prince for a minute. Like, who was Will? He was so himself in Bel Air, shaking up that whole house, like bringing life to it.
He didn't conform to
Authenticity, you know, like screwing
100%.
up, doing this, saying what he did, being a joker, loving people.
Yeah. You have to wear this jacket. Okay, fine. I'm wearing it inside out. Like he's not conforming to a box. I love that. I love that show so much.
And yeah, gosh, some things are really front runner to like, I don't know, almost helping society accept too. Like you kind of reflect on different things. Like that show was that, yeah, that's a very good point, Toby. Wow. Yeah. I love
That's how
that.
you and your spirit team.
Us, I feel like that was a combined effort there. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Very
back to the
cool.
whole like your idea of education. I know that you had kind of a thought there, and I interrupted you, but I think that having part of like identifying autism at an early age, ADHD at an early age, and there's probably 100 million other neurodivergent things that you can identify people with, and tailoring the education to them so that they can have more success in their school and they can understand what they're good at, what they're bad at. I would love to see that incorporated into schools.
Right. So with their son, so he's rated a moderate autism, although he talks very well for having moderate autism. In fact, he is a talker and he's pretty eloquent. So he breaks the mold as far as like moderate autism, because sometimes they're not quite as talkative. But again, like autism, you can't really like compare. And so again, teaching me that every individual is themselves, and I think that's a great lesson for us all, right? But
Yes.
and like, but yeah, in school, so they've been trying to teach him how to read, or learning his letters, and after a while, he just puts his head on the desk and kind of tunes out, and the teachers just keep trying and trying, and he's still ahead of the curve, but only because they're working with him so much, and they're saying like if we don't work with him like this, he's gonna start falling behind. And when we talked to the autism specialist, he mentioned that schools need to really start teaching kids where they're at. And I totally agree with that. And I think in general we should, you know, teach people where they're at, you know, whether we're at work, you know, wherever they're at with their knowledge level or their skill base, like let's just give them the tools they need to be successful, back to your point. Like
Yeah.
everybody has different skills and strengths. Let's
That's one of my agitating things about education. It's just like, you got, there's a comic book or a comic strip. You got monkeys and you got fish and you got giraffes. And it's like teaching a fish to climb a tree in a school full of monkeys. It's like, yeah, you're not going to do well. And then you're teaching a monkey to swim in a school full of fish. It's like, put the fish with the fish, put the monkeys with the monkeys. Put the people where they belong. Everyone's different, right?
Right.
Let's not judge everyone off the same scorecard. Let's put somebody in the scorecard that they're going to excel at the most. Easy, because then we're going to enjoy it and we're actually going to learn better, right?
And I think it's like doing that, but then also like helping teach them to relate with one another and respect one another where they're at the same time, right? Because we all are different. So we don't feel like one is ahead of the other because we are all one and we are all the same. We're no one's better than the other. And I
Right.
used to think I was much less than others because I couldn't do the things other people could do as easily. And I did. I just thought that I was less. Now I don't feel that way anymore and I'm thankful. And we're all just humans, man. Like doing the best we can here, right? Like,
yeah, totally. And when somebody is their authentic self, no matter what an idea of their skills should be, or this is good or bad, or anything like that, when anyone is in a safe environment where they can express themselves, that's where everything starts to grow and creativity comes and ideas come and compassion and like that connection. But if people feel like they're already in a situation where they can't even express themselves, then there's no point in any of it, really. Like if they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they can express even these ideas that might not be what everyone thinks are the mold or whatever, like those kinds of things, just allowing people to play, I guess, is where I'm kind of getting at. Like allowing the play and the creativity, and no matter what it is that you have to contribute, as long as you're contributing, you're changing. Like you're creating a change and allowing people around you to offer that change.
I love that so much.
That was sweet.
Yeah, that's okay. And so I love that so much that I kind of like lost a little bit. That happens to me sometimes when I hardcore resonate with something. Sometimes I'll just like I'll focus on the feeling of it, which do you guys ever do that? Like sometimes I'll just get lost in it.
Yeah.
When I'm like, it happens to me all the time. Like I feel what the energy is. Like I was just feeling what you were saying. Like, wow, that's like, wow, it's powerful what you're saying.
Well, because the reason why I was saying is because you were talking about allowing people to be in their groups of who they fit with and all of that. Like imagining that, say there's 4 groups in a class and they're all able to be in their class and play. And maybe it's not because we're going to learn X, Y, Z or whatever. They feel safe enough to say or do or act, or like that's a beautiful thing.
The safety, yes, that was what you said that really hit a note with me. Safety is huge to me, huge, because as I started to unpack who I really am, I didn't feel safe around anybody, not even myself for a while. Like I was like, who am I? And this is after I woke. I lost my job for the second time. Like I really was like at that point, having awoken spiritually and knowing that we are all one, but like then mentally not being able to like do much of anything. I at that point I came home from work and then I went into my bedroom and I like almost wanted to be in a deprivation chamber because I couldn't do much more than that. And that's crazy to describe, and it's almost like I went into a moderate or a severe level of autism. I mean, and that sounds crazy too, but I feel like as you burn out, I became more severely autistic. And probably more severely ADHD, like all of it together. And so safety. And then I realized that like I can be safe within myself as I got to know myself, and like, I can create my own safety, and I can like I can advocate for myself and speak up for myself and share how I really feel and create my safety in that way too. And it's been so empowering, but also so foreign at the same time. It's quite a process.
So all that work of going in the bedroom, you're doing the work. It's just not what society
and that's like
would think is the work. Like you're literally, that's what the dark night of the soul is, right?
Right.
Yeah, bringing up all of the stuff that we've been suppressing our whole lives, all the traumas and the triggers and everything. Is
letting
like
yourself
bring them up so that you can go out and then you can have that barrier, right?
That's so good. And it's not just like an idea of like you're creating this boundary or whatever. When you create these boundaries, you know it within yourself, that awareness is there. It actually energetically puts a barrier around you so that people won't cross it as much.
So true. Exactly. You're so spot on. You both are so spot on to how I feel. I agree. I so agree. That is how it is. How it's felt, and that's where there's another crossover with spirituality. Like you're taught how to make energetic barriers, but like my autism and ADHD taught me how to make energetic barriers. Like my love for self that I developed after I became more in touch with who I really am taught me how to create barriers too. But out of necessity, like, I need to still I need to walk in two worlds almost. That's kind of how it feels at times, walking in two worlds. And I need to balance that. Again, that word balance, like I need to find a way to make that work.
Using your words, walking in two worlds, I think that's a brilliant way to say it. Because it's like you're in your world of like safety, familiarity. I know what to do, where I am, how to be. And then you have the other world where you're like you're unfamiliar. You don't know what you're going to be like. This, you just go to a different country and you get off the plane and you're like, I don't know how this thing works. Like, how does the culture work here? How do you open a door for something? Like, there's so many things that you just don't know, right? But the way that those two worlds interact with each other, of the familiarity and the unfamiliarity, is I think if you stay in that familiarity and you're just like safe and protected all the time, there's no growth. And you have to grow, right? Like, the whole point of being a human is grow and expand and learn and share and contribute, right? You can't do that if you're in your little safe zone. So you got to get in the unsafe zone, whether that's at the grocery store or whatever, where you can grow, develop, become a better version of yourself, be more aware of your authenticity, and also to contribute to those around you and share what you know, share what your genius is, share what your value is. Someone might need to know exactly what Tiff is saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people.
100%. I know a lot of people do. So that's why that's kind of the whole purpose of this podcast, is just to show like, hey, we're all just regular people here on this journey. We're all just like bonking around this life together, figuring things out as we go along. Right? It's more common. Like, how many things have we agreed upon? Right? There's millions of us. Right? And make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to share something real quick that came to me during the election time, right? Because the country was pretty divisive.
Yeah.
What kept coming to my brain though is that when we get beyond the things that separate us and we can see the things that unite us as people, we'll really start to change. I don't know, and just that kept echoing in my brain, just like how once we can really look beyond what we think is different, man, we like at the end of the day we usually want the same, kind of the same things,
Yeah.
Like when you really dig in, I don't know, it's just, and I think that's the same for people in general, right? Like we all want to feel loved and we all want to like be able to express love. Maybe we've forgot how, or we've lost our way and it's more difficult to do, but like there's so much that unites us, and I feel like on this journey of like not knowing I was neurodivergent and then learning I was neurodivergent, like I kind of like can see that, I don't know, we're all just here experiencing this together and rocking it out, and we should all just be cool with one another, because it's hard and it's beautiful and it's crazy, and here we are, right?
I think it's our job as like the awakened ones, because part of the division in people, I believe, is they feel like if you get it, they don't. So it's like, oh no, they have so much now, I don't have that thing. And us as awakened, I feel like it's our job to go, like, if you feel lack, here, have more. Like, we know it's abundant, we know it's ever flowing. And then their cups can get filled so that they realize what that love is, so that Tiff, as awakened with her autism and ADHD, can see it out in the world and go, hey, I've got you. Like, this is I've had that too. It's okay. It's all those little big shifts, right? Little moments that fill people up to go like, oh, I don't need to feel this diversity of we're all separate, because truly you're not living in lack anymore.
Right. Oh, that's so true and so beautiful. I don't know that I could add anything else to that. That's so true. You're spot on, Toby. I'm in that same space right now, actually. Speaking of being on wavelengths and just kind of like, similar things coming to the minds of people, that oneness that we have, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And I've already forgotten what we were just thinking. That's how awful this is, and this is reality. This happens to me consistently. I actually have a notepad at work so that when somebody tells me something, I jot it down immediately so that I can look back on it That sounds awful, but it's true.
No,
That
no,
doesn't
it's
sound
not
awful.
awful at all. It's good. And that's good. Even saying that, then somebody listening, our listeners can go, oh, you know what? I thought about having that notepad, or I never even thought to have a notepad.
I forget.
Yes, that's what I
There's a
do.
notepad right here.
I have a notepad right here, just in case. Same thing.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, Tiffany, I really appreciate you bringing the subject matter to our front of our conscious, especially with what I'm waiting for a doctor's appointment so I can go talk to a doctor about getting some prescriptions for my my airhead of my ADD.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I think there's some misunderstanding about like what autism really is too. It's just like the description of autism. I know that like sometimes people say that maybe you're lacking in empathy. I find it to be quite the opposite. I almost find it to be you're so empathetic and so sensitive that you shut down. I should not speak for everybody, but I feel like maybe there's some blindness there. Maybe people that weren't autistic, wrote about it, and possibly the same thing for ADHD. I'm sorry to speak more about autism than ADHD. It's more just like I'm more in that like world digging in because it's more of a mystery for me right now. But like I shift between the two and just trying to learn, and we can't know how someone's feeling. And even if someone doesn't have like neurodivergence, they could be feeling other things, right? Or going through other things that kind of throw them off their kilter in similar ways. So yeah, I just think understanding and compassion around the board or across the board is really important,
Yeah, definitely.
Compassion for everything too, right? And no one's the same. People are going to have opposing views. Like, just have some patience, have some tolerance, have some compassion. Just
Right.
we're all part of the same species. We're all trying to do the same thing. It's like
Right.
And just speaking about it, giving all of this information, somebody inside themselves will go, yeah, that resonates. Like, they'll know themselves to look into it.
And that play and that creativity kind of like helps you find your way too. It did for me. I guess like following my own flow and my own authenticity kind of leads my way with that too. Yeah.
I love that.
One thing I want to say before I leave my mind, it's about you, Tiff. You said a couple times in this podcast, I'm sorry for rambling, but I think that what I'm seeing when you do that is like, it's like a superpower. Like, you said that sometimes you just feel what people say, you don't actually hear what they say. I think when you have been rambling, like when you go back and watch this podcast, watch what you say when you ramble, because it's like you're literally like this. It looks like you're just in this frequency of a higher intelligence, and you're literally just channeling information through you, and you're speaking like really powerful wisdom that you resonate with. And then you may have forgotten what you said because you felt what you said, and then you come across with an apology. So I don't think you need to apologize for your rambling. I think your rambling is you literal channeling wisdom.
That makes me wonder authenticity. As we become more authentic, are we channeling more? Like, are we right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I totally think that. Like, possibly there's some channeling going on when I listen to music and just feel certain feelings inside. Yeah, I want to learn more about that. Yeah, do you have any interesting and maybe I shouldn't be talking about this right now. Resources. Sorry, my brain is getting tired. Okay. Do you have any interesting resources for like channeling, or like, I don't know, like what that looks like?
My mentor, who is a channeler, he was my healer. So basically, I signed up with him for like 3 months, and it was like this huge journey of him channeling the dragons and Morgana, the dark goddess. And we would just like meet weekly and dig into everything. Like, energetically, he would just like help me cleanse stuff, and my personality was changing literally weekly by shedding this stuff from him channeling dragons and
it was awesome, the
dark goddess Morgana.
I love to channel, and I believe I do. I channel the same way you do, where it's just like I get into like a frequency of thought and passion, and like I resonate with this, and I just start channeling. And I, like, when I'm selling, I get in this flow state.
See what they need.
And I'm just like, boom, I'm just going. I'm like it's like almost psychic, and it's so
right.
It's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it just happens.
Right. Yeah. Same for me, and and that was also kind of a learning curve. But I guess that happened before I awakened. I just didn't know what it was. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like that hyper focus you get from ADHD that people talk about it. It's like that superpower.
Right.
Like there's times where I'm just sitting down and I'm doing multiple things at once and I'm like killing it at all things. Like I'm just understanding like this really complicated spreadsheet I'm working on, and it's like I'm I do like 14 hours of work in the span of like 35 minutes.
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm just like holy crap. But at the same time I'm also like cooking. You know,
Right.
like a super like crazy meal.
So incredible. I used to be able to do that a lot easier before. I can't do that anymore since I burnt out, but I can feel myself coming back. Like
That's
I'm
awesome.
coming back online. But yeah, that's really cool.
But when we're burnt out, I think the earth just needs us. You know, it's like, no, you can't kind of do these 8 things all at once that probably you'd want to be doing or whatever. Like, I think it's just, and then we're hard on ourselves, but it's like this whole raising of the earth's like frequency, and then our consciousness is raising, and they have to kind of go together from what I understand. Like,
Uh that's I'm getting some severe goosebumps because like that I feel like is super intuitive and spot on. I don't know, to me, like that feels right. That feels
yeah,
right.
it
Gosh,
is
yeah.
because the way, like for me personally, when I will get that burnt out, I'm like, this is not normal. It's not human. Like I just got to surrender and let it be my frequency is weird, my whole everything is weird. I'm like, okay, this is just the way it is.
You know what? I've been fighting with this for like, since July of 2023. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what it is, and I've been calling it different things. Like, was it serotonin syndrome from like SSRI? Like what really like happened here? But like at the end of the day, like my brain was tired and it needed to rest. Like whatever you
Right.
want to call it, that's what it is, right?
Yeah. And that burnout takes a while to get out of.
I've been trying to figure out like why is my mental still struggling, and it does take a while. And I think I don't know. I hope that we start to maybe be a little bit more understanding for when people get in these states, because it could look like a lot of things too. Like when you're burnt out with life, you can
Mhm.
call it a lot of different things, perhaps, but at the end of the day, it's like your brain's just tired, you just kind of need a break.
Yeah. I know for me, mine goes into the form of very antisocial.
Yeah.
I get anxiety, and my job is pretty social because I'll lead yoga classes. So that's in public in the front, and my brain needs to work to tell the bodies to do these things, right? And have the good energy to bring. When I feel like that burnout, I feel antisocial, and I feel like I have to use all of the tools I teach before my class. And I'm literally like, he's seen me full on anxiety attacks sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you ever have your stomach affected? Like, does your stomach ever, like, do you ever get sick to your stomach or just different things like that? Like, the anxiety gets there too?
Yep.
Me
Yeah, and
too.
it's a
Yeah.
lot in my head. I get nervous that I'll get too confused and not be able to function, basically.
You are oh my gosh, I've been struggling with this like at my current work, and like it's like almost imposter syndrome, like as people
Yes.
describe imposter syndrome, but like I've been going through that, and some days are worse than others, but it is, I get in my head, and like then I'll be like, wait a minute, play with your singing bowl, like makes, for me music helps me like transmute some of that. And I'll just like maybe my eyes will start pouring tears, and it's like, okay, I feel better. I can,
Move it.
try this again. But yeah, it's all like because I'm burnt out, and like what I really want to do and crave to do is to pull a blanket over my head and like shut the world out for a few days and just,
Yeah.
deprivation chamber.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the sound, like clearing that energy and being able to frequency goes in through your body, clear out that whatever it is that gives us that anxiety, jittery kind of thing. Like you just let the sound
Totally.
clear that out.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to like solfeggio frequencies?
Yes, I used to a lot in 2022, 2023, and then I
Same.
had
Yeah.
the DNAP, but
All
I'm
the
getting
time.
into it again, and they've been amazing.
It's such a powerful tool.
They are, and there's so many of them too, and there's many frequencies that affect different body parts, right, or different organs. Really something interesting to dig into.
Yeah, totally.
I think grounding is like a huge part for me, especially with the ADHD. Like if I just get too like spastic or flighty or whatever, I just got to go stand on some ground. That helps huge like that. And they've done studies on that, like specifically with people for ADHD, just being connected to the earth grounds you, calms you down. pulls
And
all of
it's
those
so
electrons
hard.
or whatever out.
But like when you're not grounded and you're just like, you're like floating, like your head just feels like it's like just floating. And it's like, it's such a weird feeling.
Your feet on the ground, yeah, you could feel it almost immediately, and then you just feel all of that energy coming down. And you just breathe, and you can feel that calmness. You can feel whatever it was is like making that vibration. Those particles move so rapidly. Just calm down and get peace. Like you just stand on the ground for 10 minutes. It feels great.
So incredible.
Yeah, for you, it's like you meditate and do your breath work, and it's like, okay, you're better now.
Yeah.
We're better now. Yeah.
And throughout this process, like my husband's seen like so many different sides of me as I've changed. And like he's loved me through it all and like tries to understand me through it all and like really just like supports me through it all, even though he admittedly doesn't understand. You know, I feel like that's part of the journey too. You know, part of it for me is, I don't know, it's balance. Balance is a theme in all of my life. Like it's in everything in my life. I feel like the spirituality, you know, neurodiversity, just balance is, I feel like, the key to peace. Like finding that inner peace, you know?
I love that. I'm going to quote you on that. Balance is the key to peace.
Yeah.
I like that.
And how beautiful to like honor back to your husband of him being able to be there for you and you being able to like open up and have this, well, you and your son, really. So he's going to be learning from both of you guys. But like, actually, here's a thought too, like how much has your son having that in common been able to like allow you to open up too?
I've learned so much about myself from watching him. And like, yeah, and I've learned how to listen, really listen deeper. And I felt like I was a good listener before, but sometimes when you're going through the motions, you know, trying to get out the door for school or, you know, got to go here or there, sometimes you're not as present as you need to be. And he told me a few weeks ago that his pants felt wet. And I mean, his pants were dry. We were just walking to the car. He just said they felt wet. That was the texture that he felt on his pants.
Yeah.
And like somebody had made a comment, they'd asked me if I listened, if I really listened. And I realized that sometimes I don't. And like, you know, just like different things like that. And I just was so thankful for that comment. Cause like, you know what? Like sometimes I could listen better. Like, yeah, I heard you, I listened, I responded. But like, was I really hearing what you're saying? You're saying that you feel wet. Like, what does that mean for you right now? What does that feel like for you? How can I help you with this, or what do you want to say about this, or, you know, just like looking at it from his perspective, like just taking myself out of the equation and what's going on in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, again, like it's important to I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, I don't know, sorry. Yeah, because he's seen like, you know, a lot of like crying and stuff out of me, and just like me, I mean, just like me realizing things and just like being hard on myself and like just this whole process. And you know, he's not like as, you know, spiritual like in the same sense that I am. Like he's not, but like that's okay, because like my son, like Julie needs both, right? Like I don't know, like we're the perfect combination to like help produce like
Balance.
balance. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Oh,
That's
Beautiful.
balance.
That's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it allows you to come and tell your story and be that example and role model for all other families and women and men. And it's so great.
Thank you so much.
Authentic tip.
Right. Like myself. Yeah. Yeah. Like, and it feels good to be yourself and to
Yeah.
speak your mind and not bottle that up anymore. It's true freedom, right?
It
Yeah.
totally is.
Love it.
I love it too. Well, thanks, Tiff. If there's any, so we started the podcast by talking about kind of what your day in the life looked like 5 years ago. So now, after hearing your story, is there any kind of final advice that you'd like to give anyone who could be listening to this?
Compassion is so important, and remember that you may not fully see what's going on in someone's inner world, that and everybody is so different. I could probably do a lot better with this statement. I'm sorry, my brain is tired.
No, we've had you on for so long.
Yeah,
We
it's a good one.
appreciate your
We
time so
appreciate it.
much.
It's like love and compassion for others is really important. It's really important, and yeah, I'm just so grateful. I don't think there is anything else I actually need to add.
Yeah,
I think
just
I'm trying
Yeah.
to force something out, but I think I've said
No,
all I need to say.
just having that compassion for not knowing, right?
Right. Yes, right? Yeah, and because sometimes like you're just not, yeah, I sometimes like I can tell right now like I'm probably gonna need to rest for a little bit, and that's
I
cool,
was
right?
just gonna say that, like, would you be able to explain to the listeners how it feels after, like, that's a long time. So right now, what are you gonna need for yourself?
Should we hang up? I'm going to just check in with my husband and my son because I've been on this call for a while. And then I'm gonna turn the lights down low and probably just kind of like mentally disconnect and just kind of
Right.
let my mind be quiet because that's what I do, I guess, when I feel tired now. I honor that feeling.
So that's huge. So people
so huge.
knowing that anyone with, ADHD or autism, after a long stint of giving back to their communities or doing their jobs or whatever, their sacrifice too is checking quickly with their family, but also they're going to have to disconnect from their family and take that time as a sacrifice for them showing up in their communities as well.
That's really good.
Just showing you so much appreciation and gratitude for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be here today. This is the first time I've ever spoken on a podcast. So I've presented in front of large groups, but this has been such an amazing experience, and I really appreciate your candor and your safety. I was really able to speak my mind, and it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for being on
Yeah.
the podcast. We really enjoyed talking with you, Tiff.
Yeah, it was wonderful to get to know you guys better, and thank you so much.